Woes. All right, so not to be too much of a geek, but the Supreme Court is Supreme Courting today. And this case out of Louisiana is outstanding. My name's Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. They're talking about whether or not you can have racially based congressional districts and whether Louisiana has violated the 14th and the 15th Amendments. I know what you're saying, Tony. You need a hobby. What if I told you this was my hobby? I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Let the games begin.
Blacks in Louisiana who will have to be 51% of the population before they'll be able to elect another black candidate. Because what you're saying is partisanship is non-negotiable. You have to create maps where you're going to have 6 districts out of 7 always white, because that's our partisanship. That means blacks never have a chance, no matter what their number is, until they reach more than 51%.
So I don't think that's true for a lot of reasons, Your Honor. So the first is, as I think the general pointed out, even without Section 2, there's no reason to assume that states are going to try to crack every single majority-minority district. And the reason why
the illustrative maps showed that a map drawn without looking at race and partisanship together would have created 2 districts. Compact in all traditional ways, it would have been District 2 and District 6 around the Baton Rouge and 2 other counties that were tied historically and otherwise. And politics, you say, not race, is what led the state not to give them another district.
So I'll say several things, Your Honor. First, I don't agree with your characterization that the illustrative maps were compact. They combined blacks in different parts of the state, just the way this court said.
No, you're talking about the state's chosen map.
No, I'm not.
The map,
illustrative map, if
the
you look at
illustrative
District
map
5.
was better. The illustrative map 2 and 6 were combined.
They're going to be fighting all day. This oral argument going on right now, that's happening live as I bring it to you. There at the Supreme Court, it's a fascinating story. An incredible case, and you're like, Tony, you need a hobby. This is the hobby. Tony Katz. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. 833-468-8669. 833 got Tony. This is a case out of Louisiana, which is whether Louisiana's creation of a second majority black congressional district violates the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Now, the very concept of we would create a district based on race is insane. That's the madness that I think that we're all kind of engaged with here. And when we talk about gerrymandering and a whole host of things, of course, the conversation of redistricting, which I favor, for example, in my state, it brings this up. And I think it's a legitimate conversation. I think it's a real legitimate argument to have about what is it that we're trying to do? What is it we're trying to get accomplished here? But if you read the 14th Amendment and take a look at its series of statements, the question is, by doing so, see, one would think that creating a district racially based is being supportive of. But what about detracting from? What if you meant it as detracting from, but it's actually supportive of in another way? And this is a court that has already engaged on some of these subjects. This is the court that did away with you can't utilize race on preferences for college admissions. This is a court where seemingly John Roberts, of all the issues John Roberts has, and there are a great number. This is something that he has been itching to get to since his days in the Reagan Justice Department. Quote, "It is a sordid business, this divvying us up by race." A dissenting opinion in 2006, his first major voting right case as Chief Justice. And part of I think, a larger scale argument is something that I've always considered incredibly ugly. If we take a look at the Voting Rights Act, go to 1965, outlawing the discriminatory voting practices adopted in many southern states after the Civil War, including literacy tests as a prerequisite to voting. I believe in no poll tax whatsoever. We should not be as a society in any way that puts a level of litmus test other than, are you a citizen? Now, I believe you should have to prove that you're a citizen. You need to provide the ID kitten. But after that, I'm done. And I would wholeheartedly agree that any practice that would try to create limitation or present a blockage is an issue. The fundamental argument here that I would like to get to is we take a look at Alabama of 2025 and we treat it like it's Alabama of 1965, and that's not right. What the left tells us is you have to. It's a must. How dare you? And as we have gone about saying life has changed, things have changed, people have changed, let's not be thinking that because you're a southern state, you're a bigot or you're a racist. Let's not do that because it's valueless. Alabama of 2025 is not Alabama of 1965. People on the left said, how dare you? We have to keep an eye on these states. We have to keep a boot on their neck. We have to prevent them from. Once you realize that they say that they think that they act that, what they're telling you is there can never be any level of moving forward. If we are with the people in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and assure domestic tranquility, the Constitution involves a moving forward, but you have a part of the country that has no interest in any way engaging and developing and growing, only to say, here is the grievance, whether the grievance is legitimate or not, and say we will never get past it. Never getting past it is the illegitimate part. It's like Gabrielle Zevin writes in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. How can one get over their trauma when it's the most interesting thing about them? A line so strong that I can't, there's not a week that goes by that it doesn't pop in my head as I'm discussing or thinking about something else. I used a line before I heard this from Gabrielle Zevin. How do you heal the racial divide when the wound is so profitable? Not to forget. In any way, not to forget. I believe the Tulsa Race Massacre, as a matter of principle, should be taught in every middle school in America, as long as we're going to have public schools. And it should be taught in every private school. It should be taught in every religious school. It is of great shame that I didn't know of the Tulsa Race Massacre until well into my adulthood. That is not going to fly. That's crazy. And I can say in the same breath, without any level of hesitation, this idea of America's original sin and we are somehow guilty based on the color of our skin for the acts of people we did not know 300 years ago, 250 years ago, 184 years ago. Oh, hell no. We must remember, we must never forget, and then we must move forward in pursuit of the more perfect union, which, if we take a look at things like the Voting Rights Act, if you want to utilize that as the example, or numerous other pieces of legislation, we are heading towards because we rectify wrongs. is it wrong to state that a district can be created on the case of just its race? This is the question. Justice Gorsuch now speaking.
I think it's but for. I think
Well, but for can't be compromised means it's an essential component. It wouldn't have happened but for. Okay, so it's not but for.
not but for. The way the court has described it as,
Is it a proximate cause?
I don't think that's the right way of thinking.
It's not a
about it.
proximate cause. So what is it?
I think the way the court has described it is it's a factor that could not be compromised and where race-neutral principles were subordinated to it. So this case is a very easy case to analyze that because the race-neutral principles of incumbency protection were.
I'm not worried.
Okay,
I'm focusing on your test going forward, not this case.
So let me help you this way then, because I think the question is when is predominance not satisfied where race is considered? I'll give you two examples.
Yeah, I mean, under our normal equal protection jurisprudence,
So they're going to go through this and through this and through this. I think it's a fascinating case. And I think it's going to tell a story. The most interesting, I shouldn't say the most interesting because I wouldn't say that I have enough study on the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg to say I would know her most interesting comments. But an interesting comment, a rather interesting one, attributable to the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, former Supreme Court Justice, is that she thought Roe v. Wade went too far. It was an overreach, right? This idea of a privacy protection when regarding abortion or anything else, this was an overreach of the court. And I absolutely believe that Roe v. Wade was always an overreach of the court, was always a horrific decision and should have been returned to the states. We live in a fundamentally false view of things when we think that the court is infallible, that its decisions have always been in a level of perfection to exist throughout all time. They were wrong on Plessy versus Ferguson. They were wrong in Dred Scott. I argue they were wrong in Obergefell. It's not that two men or two women can't spend their lives together. It's that no right to same-sex marriage exists in the Constitution. To decide there is one is to create a right out of whole cloth. And I oppose this, especially a subject that at the time was winning in the states. You could have won all 50 states, which is the way to do it. As a matter of just the decision, I oppose Obergefell based on the fact that the right does not exist in the Constitution. You can go put it there, fine by me, but you can't decide it exists because you want it to. I don't think it's as dreadful as Dred Scott. Please don't get me wrong. But you can't just invent a right because you want to. And I believe the court did that. This case is one of those that I think is really going to set a stage for how things are done going forward. Can you create districts solely based on race? And if the argument is, well, white districts are already based on race, I would laugh at that out loud. Out loud. Because one of, I think, the worst things this concept does, is state that everybody of a race thinks in the same way, acts in the same way, votes in the same way. As a concept, I think it's some of the most bigoted stuff out there, for sure. We've got a lot to get to. Let's get to it. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. All right. So they're still going. I kind of want to hear a little bit more of it. Is that all right?
Why is because redistricting is a complicated multi-factor inquiry where lots of the permissible factors highly correlate to race. And if you don't have a standard like predominance, as this court recognized in Alexander, every partisan gerrymander case will become a racial gerrymander case because they will always come in and say, aha, you must have.
But where it predominates, I'm repeating myself now, is where the district becomes not compact, not reasonably configured.
That is one way it becomes race doesn't predominate. The other way is if they just set out to say, I'm going to draw a 55% black district, and then they backfill from there because
That's race predominating.
exactly.
Yeah.
But importantly for our purposes, in a Section 2 case, when we say that race can't predominate in the at step 1 of Jingles, we are not focused on what the plaintiffs do. The
Right.
plaintiffs can absolutely consider
Okay, I
race.
got that.
The court has to conclude that their map is better than the state's map, and then you avoid predominance.
I got that. Okay, so then what I viewed as the real innovation of your brief that we have not considered before, as you point out, is the material on page 25, the political objectives. Yes. And that strikes me as new, but also new because we haven't considered it before.
So I think that's right. I don't think this court has ever squarely considered it. I think part of the reason the court is
What's the rationale for why it's consistent for what we have allowed before?
Because it is another traditional race-neutral principle. It is one that hasn't been urged as frequently, in part because it was unclear whether partisan gerrymandering.
Because of Rucho. I mean, pre-Rucho.
Right, pre-Rucho. But post-Rucho, it is totally clear that that is a permissible criteria. Indeed, in Rucho, the court described it as ignoring the good faith inference that the legislatures do to not consider their political objectives.
Got it. And is it also, though, part of constitutional avoidance?
Yes, again, because
So there are two things. It's hasn't been considered before, and it avoids constitutional problems if we fold page 25.
that's absolutely right. Again, I think one
I
thing to
haven't read
remember
page
here is
25, so I'm gonna cease it right there. This case, I think is super interesting. Meanwhile, Hamas is in the news, and of course, your comments. I always appreciate they're talking about cigars. Seemingly, Claudia in the chat room could have ended up with Jorge Padron. Is this the way I'm seeing it? Is this how I'm reading it there, Claudia? Because that's something. That is something indeed. If this is the possibility of what could have been. By the way, Supreme Court is also going to hear, and this is what I was gonna bring another one. Police authority in searching homes. Another case I'm very, very interested in. Hey, when are we coming back? Okay. All right. Coming back. Let's go do this. Right on, music in 5. One day you guys will be able to hear producer Landon, but that day's not today.
So thank you. Your support of our family and the work that Charlie devoted his life to will be something I cherish forever, so thank you. To our gracious First Lady and her office for making this event possible, thank you as well. It's beautiful. To Vice President and the lovely Usha fans, your friendship has been an unbelievable encouragement. Thank you. And to all our friends and family that are here and watching from all around the world, thank you for loving us. Thank you for praying for us and for believing in what Charlie believed in.
This was Charlie Kirk, his wife, Erica Kirk, accepting on his behalf the Medal of Freedom from President Trump. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. There are people who think that this was wrong. Let them. what does it matter? What does it matter that people who want to call Charlie Kirk a racist and Charlie Kirk a bigot, what does it matter what they think of awards that the president of the United States decides to present? It doesn't. And a lot of people want to get wrapped up in the fact that this might matter. It doesn't. I think it is obscene to have thought of Charlie Kirk as a racist or a bigot. I admit to you, as clear as day, I wasn't friends with Charlie Kirk, and that's okay. I didn't agree with every commentary. That's okay. I wasn't a super great fan of the debate style because it didn't seem to me to be debate. I never like a style where somebody asks a question and then the response is, let me ask you a question. It was a rhetorical utilization to get to where he wanted to be. It's not that I disagreed per se with anything in the where he wanted to be. The fact that I'm not Christian never bothered me, that the man was a man of faith. Never actually thought too much of it in that I found no offense to it. That it formed for him opinion and philosophy and an ability to engage. That when asked the question, when someone was trying to trip him up, he had remarkable recall and could go to chapter and verse and then connect it to other things, connect to other things. He had practiced these things. It was very obvious. And in all of these debates, you know, you see them so often. The real capability is the ability to hit on the data without losing your cool. Because very often the objective is to try and get you to lose your cool. And then, see, you can't. It has to do with progressive circular logic. And what I mean by that is that you get asked a question by a progressive here, right? The question one. And then you're able to answer question one. And instead of a refocus or digging deeper on question one, they move to question two. Got to move over and answer question two. And then on that, they move to question three and they keep moving around until they get to the question where you're like, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Well, you see, there's the problem. And then they drill down on that because you don't have the answer. You see, that's you answered 25 questions in a row to a place where they could not respond. And they finally got to their 26th question. And that proves that you need to be educated. You've experienced this. You know this to be true. Right now, you're saying, oh my gosh, my uncle does that all the time. I have this bratty niece who does that all the time. And me, I can't say anything back because it's my niece. And then I'm going to be the bad guy. First of all, be the bad guy. It's better than living in pain. Listen, discretion is the better part of valor, but if you have to sit through a Thanksgiving dinner where the other parts of the family get to scream at you, yell at you, and call you names, and you have to somehow sit there and take it, you should not sit at that dinner. You should be busy. You should stay home, eat McDonald's, watch football in your underwear, and say, my God, why didn't I do this years ago? It's a much better philosophy than sitting at the meal and getting punched in the face by people who know you won't punch them back because you have a sense of decorum and they are rotten. That is exactly the same approach as, who cares what these people have to say about Charlie Kirk or Erica Kirk? Forget them. Lovely ceremony, lovely gesture. The end. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. You'll forgive me a little busy this morning. I had, well, actually this afternoon. We're this afternoon. I had on my morning show yesterday the Indiana Attorney General, who's accusing a state senator of harboring an illegal alien and their family and being opposed to legislation that would help the state fight against illegal immigration. And then she came on because she was upset that she's being lied about and claimed that the attorney general never was willing to talk to her about the legislation. And now the attorney general, Todd Rokita, is on Twitter providing receipts saying, here's the email we sent asking for a meeting and you telling us you were too busy. Ooh. So it has nothing to do with this show, but there are bombs being dropped on the social medias right now. That is, you can't do that. It happens all the time. You cannot claim at all that, oh, they never got back to me, and then they're able to prove it. Your credibility is shot in every way. Coming back at 37. So Hamas is slow rolling the return of the remains of those hostages killed by them. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today, guys. Good to be with you. Good to be here. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. Purposefully slow rolling the release. This has got the Israelis infuriated. This is going to lead to a fracturing very, very quickly of the peace deal. Hamas is required to fulfill its commitments, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. And they said all hell will break loose if Hamas doesn't. 4 were returned. 3 have been identified. 1, as was reported, turns out wasn't an Israeli soldier. They were in an IDF uniform, but that wasn't who they thought it was. And they were able to do this identifying very, very quickly. Israel said they're going to restrict aid into Gaza. Hamas has said, okay, we'll release more people. There's no question about what Hamas is. There's no question about the people who are desperate to support Hamas. We see them. We know them. We see how they engage in this fraud and how they are not happy with ceasefire because that was never the objective. We've been through this. We understand it. What they want is a destroyed Israel, dead Jews, and then a destroyed America. This is what they want. There is no debate. So we don't have to discuss it as a debate. What is very interesting is the commentary from President Trump. Because President Trump was very clear about the idea that Hamas has to disarm.
Guarantee that is going to happen.
Well, they're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
How will you do that?
I don't have to explain that to you. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
First, I love that answer more than oxygen. I don't have to explain that to you. How? You mean I should let the enemy know through your ridiculous news outlet how I'm going to do this? I think that's a terrible idea, to give the enemy the advantage of knowing how we're going about doing things. But there is no question. There is no question that the statement from MAGAville must be one that makes them go, I'm sorry, what now? How are you going to make them disarm is a really good question. I'm not saying the president's wrong in his response. He's 10,000% accurate in his response. Only the lunatic would be like, okay, so we're going to send in this infantry division, and then we're going to end around here. Then we're going to drop 3 sorties over there. Then we're going to have a guy jump from behind a bush and go boogity, 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 boogity. And then we're going to send out an attack pigeon. This pigeon is designed for death, I tell you. And he's going to crap all over them, and they're going to go, oh no, pigeon crap. And that's when we're going to get all the guns. By the way, Operation Pigeon Crap, great name for an operation. I never thought of that before, but I'm telling you right now, if I was in charge of naming military operations, Operation Pigeon Crap, top of the list. God, that exhausted me. It really did. He's right. Of course he's right. But now it's you and me on a bar stool smoking a cigar. I've got the Oliva Serie V Milanio right here. This is the Torpedo. It's a beautiful stick. It's perfect for the show. Just wonderful, wonderful cigar. Yes, if you're watching the live stream, you've seen me do it. I smoke while I do the show. I like cigars. I smoke cigars. I apologize for nothing. How in the world are you going to disarm them? It's a solid question. The reason that I bring it up, because it's a solid question for you and me on the bar stool, having this conversation right now. The reason I bring it up is because for MAGAville, this has got to be bothersome. Now, I was very happy to see people push back against Steve Bannon's statement about this peace deal is a huge loss for Netanyahu. And then he said Tel Aviv Levin. And I think he's talking about Mark Levin. And that's just so screwed up, it can't even be discussed. That is screwed up, Steve. Completely screwed up. Of course, what's wrong with being supportive of Israel? You think because he's supportive of Israel, he's not supportive of America? Steve, stop it. Don't buy into that ridiculousness. They're leading us to war. Stop it. The president just said, we will disarm them. That is a moment to say, how does that happen? Does that happen with American troops? We know that 200 troops were sent to kind of oversee things. I didn't like that. I didn't ask for that. I don't want that. We talk about Ukraine and Russia. And there was a really, really stupid question that was like, oh, look how smart this is. Russia owes the Ukrainian people reparations or should pay for the rebuilding. Reparations to pay for the rebuilding. And then someone was like, well, then why don't Israelis owe Gaza to rebuild? Why don't they pay for the rebuilding? Hamas attacked Israel. Why in the world would Israel have to pay for anything? Hamas should pay with their blood, and so should anybody who engaged support of Hamas. It's a war. They should pay for the rebuilding is exactly what happens when you allow leftists to think that their radicalness is intellect. As if these two things are in any way the same. They are not. Ukraine may not have been great, but they did not deserve to be invaded. And to the question of how does this fight resolve, well, you already have NATO saying that they'll take the lead. That could involve U.S. troops, but most likely it'll involve European troops, U.S. troops in the background, and of course the buying of U.S. military hardware, maybe at a discount. Same thing could be true regarding Israel and the disarming of Hamas. But the only way to disarm Hamas, if you and I are just sitting here having a cigar, drinking a bourbon, talking about how this would be done, is you got to walk in and you got to take the gun. The problem is they might fire the gun. I mean, that's the fundamental issue. The only way to truly disarm Hamas, the president brought it up. Don't tell me I can't discuss it. Don't tell me I'm a warmonger. The president was asked the question. He said he would disarm. He didn't say how, and he was absolutely right. I'm allowed to ask how and go through the machinations of what it would take to disarm Hamas. And the only way you disarm Hamas is to end the Iranian regime. Tell me I'm wrong. Walk me down the road. Walk me down the road where Hamas doesn't have a single gun. They don't even have a flare gun. They don't have a water gun. They're not even allowed to refer to their biceps as guns. Tell me how that happens if Iran is able to give them the dollars or utilize dollars to rearm them. I'll wait. I don't know. Do I have any good waiting music? I sometimes have good waiting music. Not today. I'm a little bit out of wait, let me see. Okay. Oh, this might work. Here's some good waiting music. You tell me, I don't have Jeopardy music for some reason. You tell me how this happens without getting rid of the Iranian regime. I'll wait.
What would Brian Boitano do if he was here right now? He'd make a plan and he'd follow through. That's what Brian Boitano do. What would Brian Boitano do if he were here today? I'm sure he'd kick ass or two. That's what Brian Boitano do.
What? Thought that was pretty good thinking music. Oh, it's going to screw with my monetization issues on YouTube. Don't. Every day. You can't monetize this. They don't censor. They don't take down anything. But some of the music we pick and everything else, oh, that's not monetizable. It's okay. Sponsorships now available. Screw the monetizing. Let's bring the sponsorships, people. I don't see how that happens. I don't see how it happens. And I am not so sure that MAGAville is prepared for this conversation. Or maybe I'm not giving them the credit that they deserve, because I'm not engaging this to be disparaging. Maybe they are absolutely aware of it, and this is the thing that they never wanted. They knew it would get to this as well. But I don't know how you think that's going to happen. I don't know how you disarm Hamas without ending the Iranian regime. And if anybody's got an idea, I'm all ears. Right? Aaron there commenting, Hamas expects everything to go back to how it was before October 7th. They don't expect anyone has an appetite to engage in more fighting after how Israel was excoriated. No. You could argue that Hamas expects everything to go back the way it was before October 7th. But that was their expectation when all this happened. They figured that the world would bring Israel to heel, and Israel refused to do it. And I'm telling you, even with all the fanfare in the Knesset and all the love Trump got and all the cheers and everything else, if Hamas does not return these dead Israelis, the IDF is going to go right back in. They're not going to care. They got the hostages back who are alive. They know that this is all a long shot. They want every body part. They want every tooth. It matters in a way I cannot properly express here. But you think they're going to take abuse from Hamas? No matter what Trump wants, no matter what peace deal he's trying to get, no matter what Nobel Prize he desires, Israelis won't do it. Those days are over. There are no more October 6th Israelis. They are October 8th Israelis. Hamas is going to go. But if you want to disarm the way Trump is discussing, I don't know how that does not go through the Iranian regime. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. So the Louisiana case has, they've finished arguments. This won't be settled for another couple months in front of the Supreme Court about whether you can create congressional districts race-based. Now they're hearing the case on searches and seizures. So this is Case versus Montana. This is about whether the Fourth Amendment requires police to have search warrants and probable cause for perceived emergencies. Oh, I know that I'm a dweeb. Like I like on these things, totally geek. This, a cigar and a bourbon all day. I could scream at a Supreme Court conversation like I could at a soccer match. And you're like, Tony, you shouldn't be watching soccer. You're a grown man. I love soccer, and the people who are anti-soccer, I've never quite understood. I have never quite understood it at all. By the way, yes, I noticed that the new commercial break thing we have is way too loud. So, Sarah, way too loud. We got to bring that volume down. Right there. This audio level is correct. That's right. Yeah, we're trying. We're practicing. Let me see what we got here. See if they're hearing this conversation. Yeah. You hear it? I'm asking the chat room. Can you guys hear this?
That he was unlikely to shoot himself, and
But
that
I find your argument very odd, right? We're trying to think about a standard here. And I would
Laundry
think
Brown
that the
Jackson.
relevant criteria are the amount of information that the officers had
yes,
and the threat to the individual, the actual nature of the emergency. And so in this very situation, I'm thinking the fact that they had a lot of information about Mr. Case actually hurts your cause, not helps you. I mean, I understand you want them to draw a different inference about it, but, you know, this person had a long history of threatening suicide, whether it be by cop or whether it be on his own or whatever. We have a long conversation, detailed, specific with the girlfriend about circumstances that look like they're creating a pretty significant emergency.
You guys don't mind.
I would think these
are just
kind of
cases
like
that
what
affect our
Justice Alito
everyday
was
life.
suggesting on our axis of information and threat or risk. This seems like it's pretty high.
Justice Jackson, I think that information led the officers on the scene, because there are deliberations that are captured on body cam. Those deliberations by officers with quite a lot of extensive experience with Mr. Case are powerful evidence that Mr. Case was unlikely to shoot himself, because they're talking about him provoking a confrontation with the police. And I would just quote, for example, Police Chief Sathers says, "He ain't got the guts. This is probably the 10th time I've dealt with him doing this." Or Sergeant Pasha, who says he's been suicidal
Okay,
forever.
well, setting
and he hasn't
aside
done
this
it.
particular case, let me just try to understand the standard that you want us to apply.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say that it should be probable cause. I thought we already had the emergency aid exception requiring, quote unquote, an objectively reasonable belief that an emergency is occurring.
That is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's asking the questions right there. The Supreme Court has now moved on to another case, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. The arguments happen kind of quickly. The decisions take months to put together. This is right now being discussed in front of the Supreme Court as we speak. This is a Fourth Amendment case called Case versus Montana. That is the story. Police officers went to the home of William Case. This is after Case's former girlfriend told him that Case, an Army veteran, had threatened to commit suicide, as you just heard, was being discussed. When the girlfriend told Case that she planned to contact the police, he threatened to harm any police officers who came to his home. 3 police officers went to Case's house. They said they did not think about getting a warrant to go in because it wasn't a criminal thing. Instead, they were going to assist him. So now the question is, to the justices, how certain police must be that there is an emergency before they can enter a home without a warrant. Is it enough, as Amy Howe writes over at SCOTUS blog? Is it enough, as the Montana Supreme Court held, that police only have reasonable suspicion that there is an emergency, or are police officers required to meet a higher bar and have probable cause to believe that there is an emergency? Now, without hearing any other parts of the argument, I argue they have to have the highest bar, because it is undoubtedly true. And our officers are going to yell at me. People are going to tell me I'm anti-police. And I'm not anti-police. I'm just pro-rights. And my rights come before the job the police does, or the police do. Absolutely, police believe they can enter any home, do anything, decide something's an emergency. I'll give you the greatest example. Police come to the door, and you answer the door, and you're like, I'm not going to answer any more questions. You go to close the door, and a cop will put their foot in the door. Have you seen these videos? And then if you slam the door on the cop's foot, you attack the cop. I believe that officer should be fired on the spot and lose their pension. Tell me I'm wrong. But it goes to the idea of, if they just say, well, I thought it was an emergency, is that really enough? I argue no. Incredibly interesting case. But there could be details that sway me and change my mind. I'm all about it. More to get to. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. Don't leave. This is Tony Katz today. Should we go back to it? Do we want to hear more of it? Because I want to hear a little bit more of it. Let me go back to it.
For the person to render assistance, but not for other purposes. It's not a license to go rummaging about the place. It is a license perhaps to enter and search for the occupant who's facing a serious risk.
But the necessity defense was a broad-based common law tort defense. As my friend points out in the respondent's brief, it was applicable to private parties as well as constables. So it doesn't say anything specific about constable authority.
But
even if it did,
it applied to both, and it didn't require it didn't require the magic words probable cause, whatever they may or may not add.
Justice Gorsuch, even if it did, even if you were to consider the necessity defense, as the controlling principle here, as the state has suggested, it would hardly help the state because it was, if anything, more stringent than the probable cause requirement or the affray rule because you had to be right. So
No, you had it.
well, the United States cites the restatement.
Yes, okay.
But at common law, you had to be right that the necessity actually
What's
obtained.
your best authority for that?
I would point to the state's own cases. I would point to Rex. I would point to the Wakeham case. In general, at common law, you had to be correct. Now, there is this reasonableness gloss in the second restatement. I would note that the state hasn't pressed this argument. It hasn't suggested that there ought to be some generalized necessity defense that would be drawn from modern-day tort principles. Gotcha. The way this has come up in the briefs is, as you suggested, is by way of common law. Yeah. And again, I think that the relevant question is, what was the authority of constables? And they had all these specific rules that are set out in the treatises.
Thank you.
I thought the hesitation of the officers that you pointed out before showed care before rushing in and thoughtfulness by the officers. So why don't you look at it that way?
Your Honor, I think that the delay, there were deliberations that were quite extensive, and it took them 40 minutes to go in, as the dissent in the decision below noted. That amount of time is inconsistent with the kind of urgency you would expect if what you thought was happening was somebody was either bleeding out or was about.
Well, if they, after deliberations, walk away and he commits suicide, I mean, what are you thinking then if the officers?
That would be unfortunate and tragic, but we are trying to strike a balance between.
Well, and the officers need some clarity, I would think, in circumstances like this about what they can do and what they can't do, and it seems like they thought about it carefully and decided that the risk was sufficiently high, to Justice Jackson's point, and that harm that would occur was sufficiently substantial that they should go in. And by the way, they're going in at great risk themselves.
Of course,
and this is not, as Justice Gorsuch is pretextually looking for a crime or going in for some other pretextual reason or going into, it's going in really to help someone.
A couple of responses. One, there were certainly two risks that were possible. There was the risk that he was going to shoot himself, and there was the risk that he would try to provoke a confrontation with the officers. JH, the ex-girlfriend, actually identifies both risks. In the initial call, she expresses concern that Mr. Case is going to shoot himself. When she arrives on the scene, because she comes to the scene, she says that he also said that he was going to try to shoot it out with the officers, and that echoes what Officer Lindstedt says when he arrives on the scene. What he says shortly after arriving is, last time we were here, he said he was going to shoot it out with, and he mentions another officer, and then later on he recounts another incident where Mr. Case tried to provoke a confrontation.
I'm sorry,
on his perception.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
on the articulation of the standard you want, do you have examples where under the current law officers would go in, but you think under your test they wouldn't and shouldn't and couldn't go in?
Well, Your Honor, I think the swatting example that we cite in our brief is a very real concern. It's a pretty commonplace concern where somebody calls, and under the United States theory, I think it's at page 22, where you would use the severity of the threat to ratchet down the level of certainty that's required. If somebody made a swatting call and said, well, there's a bomb inside the house, it's a pretty big bomb. I walked by the house and I'm worried that it's going to blow up the block, you wouldn't even need corroboration. You could just go in. And so we think that just requiring a fair probability or a substantial chance and some corroborative work, and I think in a lot of heartland scenarios, the police would have that and would. Yes, Justice.
Please, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
Please.
One of the things that strikes me here is the term probable cause is not itself self-defining, and most of the way we know what probable cause is because we have a body of case law that talks about it, and it talks about it in.
Interrupt, not to be rude to Justice Sotomayor. Interesting, if I'm understanding the basics of this right, because somebody has a history of something, did they de facto lose their rights when a claim is made about them. This guy has threatened to harm this one. He's threatened to harm this one. He's threatened to harm that one. He's threatened to harm himself. Did those claims, which I think we should ask whether they actualized, does that when someone says he's in the house, he's all alone, he has a gun, he's going to hurt himself, did he lose his rights through the prior claims? My gut says no, he didn't. He might be a messed up guy, he might be a bad guy, he might be a giant world-class jerkface. But I don't think he lost his rights. Anyway, I love this stuff. I'm fascinated by it. Also, if you listen long enough, you'll hear Ketanji Brown Jackson, and it's just like in the case regarding racially based districts. I thought she was horrifically insulting, purposefully insulting. I thought it was. I felt bad for the Solicitor General there. I felt bad for the lawyers because she was just so dismissive, nasty. Now, one could argue, hey, welcome to the big leagues, kitten. I get it. But I didn't feel that the other justices were like that. And also interesting, and I'll share it with you. So I've been listening to that case for a while. It really went on a long time. Even Clarence Thomas is asking questions. If you know anything about the Supreme Court, he in his whole tenure, he never really did. His work was done in the decisions and where he put out his decisions, his dissents, etc. He was very, very rarely asking a question in open court. It wasn't until the death of Antonin Scalia that he started getting more vocal. And that was only for a short while. And his part of his argument was, I don't have to ask questions. Scalia's going to ask all the good stuff. I'm good. I'm fine. It's going to satisfy. I'm paraphrasing there. Ketanji Brown Jackson thinks she knows everything. By the way, Aaron, you didn't say anything wrong. No, you didn't say anything wrong at all, man. I was just making a statement. No, I was taking your commentary and I was like, okay, yes and no, right? Even though I disagree with something. Yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to apologize. You didn't, you didn't pour sugar in my gas tank. Apologize. Don't be silly, man. All's good. All is very good. We're coming back to the show in a minute and a half. Usually this is when I take the break, but I was listening to this and I forgot. That's cool. Breaks are for suckers. I've got Harry Enton. And then I've got Cheryl Hines. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. Cheryl Hines is the wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And she was on The View. And it was interesting to say the least. Because the ladies of The View don't know how to have a conversation. They know how to attack. And anybody who considers Sonny Hostin an intellectual, well, that's ridiculous. Now, if you're telling me, Aaron, that a comment about hostages is gone, I didn't delete anything. It's possible, if you commented on YouTube, it's possible YouTube did, but I never saw a comment on hostages. I'm going back through and I'm taking a look at it. I hear you. Coming back in 5. No, I even go back to the, my mother, the car thing, which is a reference to my morning show. Nope. We're good, man. I didn't see it. And I still don't see it. Yeah. To watch the wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Cheryl Hines, take on the ladies of The View, who are not what we call, I believe, in the Latin we would say, oh, what is the translation? Smart, not smart. It's really good. She handled herself. And for the record, Cheryl Hines is a progressive. I disagree with her on about 19 million things. But Sonny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg actually think they're bringing an intellectual heft to the show. It's adorable. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. This, however, before we get there, is Harry Enton over at CNN. And he's got numbers. And the numbers are, well, yeah, exactly what Democrats thought.
Because that's sort of the baseline. That was, of course, the first Trump term. That was where Democrats were sort of keeping pace. You go back to April, look at the generic congressional ballot. What you see? You see +3 Democrats in 2025 in April. You see +3 Democrats back in April of 2017. Now jump over to this side of the screen. What happens? Well, the Democrats are no longer keeping pace with the pace that they were setting back in 2017, 2018. You look back in 2017, you saw that the Democrats had leaped up to an 8-point advantage. I remember covering this. I remember a lot of folks, including myself, saying, you know what, Republicans look pretty decent right now in terms of the fact that they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency, but things were likely going to flip. And I was looking for the same signs this year. The bottom line is it hasn't happened, Kate Baldwin. It hasn't happened. Democrats have stayed basically steady. They have fallen off the pace. Democrats were way out ahead back in 2017 on the generic congressional ballot. And now we're basically looking at Democrats ahead. But again, they are so far in back of the pace that they set back there. And so I think what a lot of folks are seeing, folks like myself, are saying, wait a minute, given what we might be seeing in redistricting, is this +3 going to be enough, Kate Baldwin?
Well,
Now, as I've said before, I favor redistricting. I think redistricting is the right move. I didn't say it wasn't ugly. I am discussing this solely on the politics of it because I, like you, am a grown-up. And I understand that what we're dealing with here is the grown-up world. To understand the redistricting a little bit better, allow me to introduce you to someone by the name of Nancy Pelosi. Trust me on this one. Trust me on this one. Nancy Pelosi is going to explain to you, as she did to Jen Psaki just yesterday, why redistricting matters so very, very much.
Behind your back, you wouldn't have won so many times. Do you wish other states, do you want other blue states to really think about this at this point or think about a path forward, even if it's following the same model as California with letting people vote to do it?
Well, people have to do what their path is. It's really important to note, I thank you for your acknowledging what I have done, but this was a big plan. That is to say, in order for us to move forward, the California Democrats had to bless a plan that added 5 seats, which meant members had to give up some of their Democrats to do that. Zoe Lofgren, our chair of our caucus, and Pete Aguilar, who's the chair of the bigger caucus, they led the way on this. Zoe has just been remarkable. So our delegation had to vote for this. The state legislature, House and Senate, under the leadership of Speaker Rivas and pro tem leader of the Senate, McGuire, they then supported what we sent them. And then, of course, Gavin Newsom carried the ball down is carrying the ball down the field, and we're very proud of that. But everybody, since we're all into it, people have, you have to own the ground to win an election. So everybody has a vested interest in California in doing this. So we had a plan. If other states have a plan to do. But, we only need 3 seats to win, to make Hakeem the speaker. Understand that. So
I understand that, former Speaker Pelosi. I understand it, and it's why I favor redistricting. Did you hear what she said? You only need 3 seats to get Hakeem Jeffries. Doesn't matter how you get there. Get there. Well, Tony, California is only redistricting because Texas did. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's what you keep saying, political left, but that isn't what's happening. Texas engaged a political process. They engaged a political process in the state of Texas, and it is therefore up to Texas voters to decide whether or not they accept it. Well, Tony, it's redistricting. You won't be able to get these people out. The redistricting is for the congressional level, a federal level, not on the state level. You can vote out your state representative anytime you like. Find a better candidate. Find a different candidate. Convince people to vote in your direction. Vote the guy out. Vote the lady out. I'm not sexist. Vote him out. What Nancy Pelosi said is, we developed a plan. If they're going to do this in Texas, we are proudly engaging in retribution, and we can so manipulate the situation as to only need 3 more votes to make Hakeem Jeffries the speaker. Once you understand what it is that they're doing, what this is all about, how they're trying to take back the House and make Hakeem Jeffries the speaker, once you understand this and you realize how horrible that is, and that they see nothing wrong with an act of retribution to get to their goal, and other states should follow the model of California. The question is, for my beloved Indiana and other states, how do you not? This is the political fight. People are angry with Texas because they redistricted mid-decade. See, if you redistrict after the census, right after the census, then it's fine. They don't ever talk about how places were redistricted to create these nonsense districts that look like 2 octopi humping. And they think that that's normal. And then they created these groups, these commissions on redistricting to basically hold their power structure in place. And now a state is saying, we're not doing this. And other states are saying, we're not doing this. This is wrong to begin with. And the left has said, you can't do that. You can't do that to our pledges. Only we can do that to our pledges. They're not shy about it. You can argue that you don't like what Texas did, but you can't then argue that California is right to do it. Once California got into the game of retribution, that's when a guy who first asked the question, okay, Texas, you're doing what you're doing. And then someone brought up my state, Indiana. I'm like, I don't know why Indiana would redistrict. There are 9 congressional districts here. Republicans control 7. I don't know if you redistrict anything. Well, once you see California, you're like, of course you redistrict. Now, there's a downside. You can lose. You can redistrict and still lose the seat. Of course. This is politics. This is real stuff. Nothing is guaranteed. But if you don't make the effort, I think you're nuts, because Nancy Pelosi is going to try and make that effort in every state she can. Republicans need to grow up. This is the world we live in. Not some world where you're above it all. No, this is how we do it. No, we have to be nicer. Would you please get a hold of yourselves? Look at the history of the last 50 years. Look at the presidency of Donald Trump. Look at the indictments against him. Then remember the fight that you're in. It's at this moment the rose-colored glasses need to come off, and reality needs to kick you in the face so hard you lose a tooth. This is the fight. Time to get to it. Back to Harry Enton talking about where Democrats are in the polling right now, far below where they were in the midterms of 2017, comparing that Trump 1 to Trump 2 when Republicans had power and where Democrats were. Let it continue.
That's what I was going to ask. One change from that cycle is also this mid-decade redistricting effort that we've been covering so much. You add that in, and what do you get?
Okay, so we add that, and we take a look at the national picture, but then we, of course, taking a look at the state legislators, right? They are potentially changing things, and there are 2 things that are going on here. First off, net mid-decade redistricting gains. If both sides max out at this point, there are more Republican gains possible than Democratic gains. Yes, the Democrats might try to counter a Texas and a California, but you go along in the different states, and basically Democrats run out of room where Republicans are able to gain and gain and gain. If both sides max out, we're probably looking at a GOP gain of +7 House seats. That doesn't even take into account the potential gutting of the VRA that is right now going to be in front of the Supreme Court. If you add that in, you could be looking...
The Voting Rights Act.
What? Yes, exactly right. The Voting Rights Act. If you add that in, then you could be looking about adding 10, 12, 15, 17 on top of this 7 seats. So I think a lot of folks like myself are looking at this. We're seeing, hey, wait a minute. Those national polls are, Democrats are not gaining the way that we expected.
So the question before us is, if Harry Enton could do the math, and I think Harry Enton's very good at this, by the way, and I applaud CNN for giving him such front and center opportunities to engage so honestly. Why in the world would any Democrat want California to do it? Here's what happened. California jumped the gun. California decided it was the same old, and they could just turn these Republicans into mush, make them cower in fear, and not do anything. And everyone on social media could scream and yell and holler and kvetch and do all the things. Oh, you just want to waste people's money. You're not really a fiscal conservative. Oh, you just can't win on ideas. You're such a coward. I mean, just follow my social media feed. A bunch of people who have never gotten out of their basements are screaming at me. They think that can work. Because, well, it always has. The numbers don't line up for them. If Republicans recognize what's happening and act accordingly. These are all political processes. And these states can redistrict 2 hours after they redistrict. 2 weeks, 2 years after. Of course they can. They could do something, then move it, and then move it again, and move it again. It's a political process. And the people could decide whether they like it or whether they don't. The way it should be. Absolutely. Absolutely. We should be redistricting. Not only in my state, but in every state where you recognize what it is that the political left is doing. Oh, sure, Texas started this. You got it. But you could have left Texas well enough alone. And you didn't. And now here we are. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. All right. I got to hear this. I missed this. You know, we were talking about the Supreme Court and talking about this conversation about racially based voting districts. This is Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Thinking of it, of the fact that remedial action, absent discriminatory intent, is really not a new idea in the civil rights laws. And my kind of paradigmatic example of this is something like the ADA. Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act against the backdrop of a world that was generally not accessible to people with disabilities. And so it was discriminatory in effect because these folks were not able to access these buildings. And it didn't.
What argument is she making? Sorry about my microphone there. She's saying, you just heard her, that she compares this to the ADA. The buildings were not accessible, so you needed the Americans with Disability Acts to make the buildings accessible. So what argument is she really making here?
It didn't matter whether the person who built the building or the person who owned the building intended for them to be exclusionary. That's irrelevant. Congress said the facilities have to be made equally open to people with disabilities if readily possible. I guess I don't understand why that's not what's happening here.
Is she making the argument that Black people are disabled? Is that actually happening? She never ceases to amaze. Never once, never ever, never ever. Good gosh. Meanwhile, Democrats, they're been having a conference all about the shutdown. I will get to that as well. So much more to get to. Guys, I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. I'm glad that you are here. Let's get back to the show.
For your presence, for your unity, for your strength, and for your leadership. I'm deeply appreciative that we've been joined today by three extraordinary, hardworking American taxpayers, Heather, Jackie, and Jonna, whose lives are being upended by the government shutdown and the Republican healthcare crisis.
You can gather on the steps of the Capitol all you want, Representative Jeffries. This is not going your way. Doesn't matter what you say in the House. This is for the Senate to figure out. Your commentaries are meaningless. What you have are a series of stunts. I notice you have Al Green behind you there, Leader Jeffries. You want to scream at yelling Donald Trump during a address to a joint session? It wasn't actually the State of the Union. It was an address to a joint session of Congress. That's great, but it's all just fluff. What next? Cory Booker does a 25-hour filibuster? Didn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. It's like having a 24-hour flu. At the end of it, you're like, well, that was interesting. And then nothing changed. Your life goes back to normal. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. But everybody's trying to engage the American people, try and get people to their side. And Hakeem Jeffries, knowing that he's playing from behind, Republican healthcare crisis, the Republican shutdown, the Republicans call it the Schumer shutdown, which has a much better ring to it. And of course, the recognition that the Obamacare subsidies sunset at the end of 2025 because Democrats voted for that in the Inflation Reduction Act. They voted for it, and now they're angry that it's happening.
And they are here to tell their stories. Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress have shut down the government 15 days ago. And they haven't done a damn thing since.
Oh, I didn't realize we're going to be using such strong language, Representative Jeffries. Well, if they haven't done a damn thing since, well, I guess they better listen to you now. You know what? I'm going to stop sharing it because you know he's going to start cursing. I mean, I got to assume that's what's next. But the idea of just spectacle is what they do. It's like when the Women's Caucus decided they were going to storm Speaker Johnson's office. You have members screaming at Capitol Police. Remember when Democrats thought Capitol Police were awesome? Yeah, those were good times. They're demanding that a member be sworn in. You have in Arizona this member, Grijalva, who is she the daughter or the granddaughter of Raul Grijalva? I'm not sure. I don't remember if she is the daughter or the granddaughter. Her name is Adelita Grijalva. It's her father's. She's the daughter. And she won the seat. She is a vote regarding the Epstein files. And that she's going to vote to open up the Epstein files. Well, for that alone, I'd swear her in. And the argument is Mike Johnson won't swear her in because of this. He's arguing that he won't swear her in because the government shut down. Get the government open again, I'll swear her in. This is a political play. And certainly one could argue that there's a real issue with releasing Epstein files because is everything redacted? Or is there information that shouldn't get out, that might get out? And then, of course, the worst part, there are people on the left and on the right in any level of connection to Epstein who had nothing to do with the island and had nothing to do with young children, including President Trump, in my view. We would have already had that leaked. But, of course, there were connections. This guy was connected to everybody. Money is connected. And they're going to use, oh, look, here's a person name. Let's go destroy them. That is not what we should be doing here. Who was involved with abusing young children? And let's throw them in jail regardless of their name, regardless of their political party, regardless of their money. We cannot be a society that allows the abuse of children. So this is a bit of politics here. But storming his office is not a way to do anything except make yourself look foolish. This is Tony Katz today. For the members of Congress, I think it makes them look foolish. Absolutely. 10,000%. Let me go to your comments right here. Is today the Bernie AOC town hall garbage? Nope, that's later today. That's over there on CNN. Now, ask me if I'll be watching. No. I don't have to watch. I already know it. You know it, and I know it. We know what she's going to say. We know what he's going to say. We don't, there's nothing surprising here. Once you know it, you don't have to think about it. You know what's going to happen. Now, I have two stories. I'm going to get into this thing on The View. By the way, this thing from Ketanji Brown Jackson is just so nuts. I was going to finish that up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I want to hear it. Good gosh almighty.
Is that we are responding to current day manifestations of past and present decisions that disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system, right? They're disabled. In fact, we use the word disable in Milligan. We say that's a way in which you see that these processes are not equally open.
I think the question is, if you're black, that's insulting, right? Now, I take this from my point of view when I hear about hate crimes legislation, which I have always opposed. I do not believe there's any such thing as a hate crime. I don't believe there's any such thing as hate speech. There are crimes you hate. Well, actually, I would actually argue all crimes are hate crimes, and there's speech that you hate. But there's no such thing as a hate crime. It's not more of a crime because it happens to me because I'm Jewish, or you because you're black, or that other person because they're a woman. No. Crime is a crime is a crime. And so I have opposed in my state hate crimes legislation. Oh, I get looks from people. How dare you? No, I'm not a special flower. I don't believe in Animal Farm. All the animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Oh, hell no. She's arguing yes. I say it again. Let the impeachment take place. She cannot be the one on the job. No. 1 minute till we're back to the radio show. That's what we're doing. Where do I have? Oh, there it is. Excellent stuff. And yes, I'll get the haircut, and that's got to go. Right? It looks weird. Just admit that it looks weird. It does. I know it does. I'm fully aware. So this Friday, as I've said, I will not be in. I am doing a political panel in northern Indiana with some fellow radio hosts in Glen Beck. I got invited to be a part of the panel. I'm going to go be a part of the panel. I do not know if it's going to be live streamed. I got to find out. If it is, I'll be sure to put the link out on the socials. Should be interesting. I've never met Glenn. We've been in the same spots, but we've never met. I was never part of the Blaze or anything like that. So, be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Basically that he believed he found some causal links between autism and Tylenol. It created a lot of panic in women who were being told by their OBGYNs who look at them that Tylenol, if necessary to treat pain during pregnancy, is safe. What would you say, and I know you're not a medical professional, but to women who now feel anxious and nervous because their doctor's telling them one thing, but the top public health professional is telling them something very different?
This is The View. Trust me, I wouldn't share it without a reason. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. And that's Alyssa Farah asking the question, who she said if Trump frees the hostages, she'll wear the MAGA hat. And then 20 freed hostages, and now she won't wear the MAGA hat. Opportunity squandered because you could not handle, Alyssa, that Joy Behar would yell at you. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. I don't think Alyssa Farah would remember me. But she was doing comms for within that world for then Vice President Mike Pence. And so I dealt with her a couple times in interviews I'd done with the Vice President. Lovely enough. Absolutely. And then got the gig on The View as ostensibly a conservative and has not shown it yet. Has not shown an ounce of it at all. But she's asking this question of Cheryl Hines. Cheryl Hines is the wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Cheryl Hines is an actress, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Cheryl Hines and I probably agree on zero politically. But here she is, answering these questions. And it starts with this Alyssa Farah question, and then it gets into the pseudo-intellectualism of Whoopi Goldberg and Sonny Hostin. We're going to have to break this down.
Now it's time for a breakdown. Breakdown, go ahead, give it to me. Breakdown, honey, take me through the night. Breakdown.
I can listen to somebody all day. All day long. Let's go back to the question and then the answer from Cheryl Hines.
Your husband, when he announced basically that he believed he found some causal links between autism and Tylenol, it created a lot of panic in women who were being told by their OBGYNs who look at them that Tylenol, if necessary to treat pain during pregnancy, is safe. What would you say, and I know you're not a medical professional, but to women who now feel anxious and nervous because their doctor's telling them one thing, but the top public health professional is telling them something very different?
You're not a medical professional. Why don't you go give medical advice? It's a weird question. It's a weird setup to a question, Alyssa. And I think you know that. I think it was an attempted gotcha in the nicest way. But Cheryl Hines gives a message, a response from the heart.
Well, they said consult your doctor before taking it. That's what they were saying, and that holds. So I agree. Listen, I've been pregnant. I understand it's stressful being pregnant. I found, because you're so concerned with everything. I didn't drink caffeine when I was pregnant. So to say, hey, consult your doctor before you take this, I agree with that. And
I think every rational person agrees with that. Consult your doctor. When I discuss things here, I say, don't listen to me, consult your doctor. When we talked about COVID, don't listen to me. I'm a guy on the radio. For the love of God, you want cigar advice? Listen to me. You want political commentary? Listen to me. You want to laugh? Listen to me. You want medical advice? Good. Why would you listen? That's crazy talk. Go talk to your doctor. So Cheryl Hines on The View on ABC. Enter Whoopi Goldberg.
I think that's okay for moms to hear.
Cheryl?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now,
all right.
I am, this is not your fight, really, to be fighting. Yeah. This is your husband's fight.
Thank you for acknowledging that, but go ahead. But here.
This is really about your husband. But while you're here, allow me to punch you in the face and blame you for everything your husband said. I mean, that's the setup. You don't even need to hear the rest, but you will.
But we're talking about it, yeah.
I do want to say, he's not a doctor and he's not a professional.
Yes.
And oftentimes when he's speaking, he is speaking not with the best information that.
How does she know that?
That we can get, because, we could do a lot better with health stuff.
Hold on a second. How do you know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not speaking with the best information? I didn't want him to be confirmed. I didn't want a progressive that close to the president of the United States. I was against his confirmation. But how in the world do you know this, Whoopi? Who over at MSNBC told you this? That he doesn't have the best information? Did Javier Becerra have the best information? We had an undersecretary who was a man who claimed to be a woman. He didn't even know that he was actually a man and not a woman, and yet he had the best information? What a gross thing for her to say.
The best information that we can get, because, we could do a lot better with health stuff. And there's a lot of stuff he can do. And some of the things he's suggested take it out of the hands of my doctor and me and my OBGYN and me. And I
Not true.
wonder, does it give you pause, and are you able to say, you know, that might not actually be so, because I've got my experience and I've lived with this and I'm still here. So are you able to have those conversations with her?
First, her question is, your husband's a fool and doesn't have the right information. Are you able to sway him, or does he even listen to women? It's what she asked. This is a serious question from Whoopi Goldberg. Bravo to Cheryl Hines for the response.
I am able to have those conversations. And just to be clear, 90% of secretaries of HHS have not been doctors. But they
Boom. That's beautifully done. It's a political position. Enter Sunny Hostin to come in with the, oh, I know better.
90% of secretaries of HHS have not been doctors.
But they've had a
There
science
have been
background.
3.
Yeah.
No, to be
honest,
honest,
one of Obama's secretaries of HHS was an economist.
But
So
the majority of them that haven't had medical backgrounds have had a science background.
He's not a doctor. 90% weren't doctors. Well, they're scientists. Well, no, they're not all scientists. Yeah, but most were scientists. This is the argument that The View put forward to Cheryl Hines. Bravo to her in handling that with grace. Anyone who gets their medical advice or medical opinions from Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, or The View is playing Russian roulette with their health. You have to be out of your mind to trust them. They just proved it again. Meanwhile, I don't think one should stay silent when even people on the political right are acting the part of damn fools. This Politico story, the fallout, and why it all matters, and how it connects to the left. That's coming up next. This is Tony Katz Today.
Whether they were Democrats or not. And we know that there is such a significant chasm between how black and white voters vote in Louisiana that there's no question that even if there is some correlation between race and party, that race is the driving factor.
Welcome back, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. More coming out for. I didn't get to hear everything about this Louisiana case. I'm telling you, I mean, I'm glad we got to share a bunch of it, but it is. I'm going to dig into it tomorrow. It is so nuts. The argument about needing racially based districts, congressional districts, the arguments from Ketanji Brown Jackson. It's brutality. In a world where we're supposed to not be racist, they're like, excuse me, we'll still be this. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I'm going to get into this story about these leaked messages and the madness I've seen from some on the political right. Oh. Okay. Excuse me, everybody. Need to go handle something real quick. That's right. It just happened on the show. I'll wait on an answer for there. I cannot wait to get into more of that. It's going to be terrific. Really, really looking forward to that. So, with that, I'm going to get into this. So, we have to be people. Sorry, that really did throw me off for a second. We have to be people who recognize that there are some people you're not supposed to stand with if they've done something so absolutely dopey. People can learn from things and they can come back from things. And we should also be clear that we are in the days of political character assassination and total character assassination. We're in it. The dawn of unrelenting, context-free character assassination. But if you think this only goes one way, you're absolutely out of your head. And if you think that we shouldn't call out Republicans for the same nonsense that we do Democrats, you're also out of your head. That's different than whether you align on policy. I'll explain coming up. So Politico had the story, leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. It's really gross. First, on the idea of its stupidity. Tony Katz today. Anything that you text will eventually come out. If I taught my kids anything that I hope sticks, never take a nude picture of yourself and send it to someone. It will show up on a website. It will be used against you. Haven't we seen enough of this? Yes, the people who do that are wrong. It doesn't matter. It's going to get used against you. So the Politico people were able to get text messages, thousands of private messages, referring to people as the N-word, talking about rape as epic. It goes on and on and on and on. Some of these people were connected to Elise Stefanik. It's not good for her in that she's running for governor of New York. These things are all going to have a level of ramifications. It's ugly stuff. Hitler references, I love Hitler references, it's just stupid. And yes, some of it's ugly and some of it's obscene, 1,000%. I do not have to protect these people. I do not have to rally around them. Some of them, many of them, if not all of them, are going to be fired from positions in the Young Republicans or the Republicans of this group or that group. Absolutely, they're going to get fired. Now, this is different than what would happen on the political left, where you don't always get fired. And very often you don't get fired. They don't even pay attention to it. So there's an argument. I saw Matt Walsh making this argument that we're supposed to rally around these people, and yet Republicans attack their own. These ain't my own. What we're supposed to be rallied around, united on, is policy. A guy who's referring to people as this, that, and the other, engaged in gross talk, I gotta protect them. I don't think I have to do that. Matt, you're wrong. What we should do is say we believe in a policy. Like, for example, men are not women and women are not men, and we should never relent. But if someone out there is messaging to people bigotry, we don't have to rally around that guy. What the hell's wrong with you? What the hell's wrong with anybody who would think that that's possible? We don't have to rally around them because this is exactly what the Democrats have done regarding Jay Jones, the Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Virginia, who texted that he wanted to kill the then Speaker of the House and that guy's kids. And the right said, that's disgusting. He should get out of the race. And Democrats said, we support him. Abigail Spanberger, who is running for governor against Winsome Earl Sears, her name, first name Winsome, last name Earl Sears, she won't condemn him. She won't stop endorsing him. How in the world am I able to share that that's obscene and then take a look at the guy who calls himself a Republican and is calling people the N-word and talking about Jews and gas chambers and say, yeah, I'm not paying attention to that? Of course I'm paying attention to that. You don't want it. I would, if I was running for office and that was one of my people, the video would be of me physically throwing the guy out of a window. It would be a first floor window, but still, who would ever protect it? Who would ever support it? And why would anybody actually write it? I got to tell you that as gross as some of these statements are, I'm so insulted by the stupidity of writing it. It's like when people do sexting. I'm like, what are you doing? It's going to get used against you. Good Lord. I would fire them for the rank stupidity. Now, how did Politico get access to these things? 2,900 pages of chats. Somebody leaked it. Did you actually think you could trust everybody? Never put anything in a text you wouldn't say. Never put anything in a text you wouldn't want to be read in a courtroom. Well, Tony, you believe in censorship. No, I believe in being normal. Never say anything on a telephone that you wouldn't want utilized against you in a RICO case. I'm sorry. Maybe I grew up differently than other people. That is very, very possible. The idea that I shouldn't look at these people and say they are dopey, they are gross. Of course you should. Well, you're not rallying around Republicans. Democrats always rally around their people. Yes, and that's what makes them so disgusting. Ilhan Omar says about Jews, it's all about the Benjamins. Rashida Tlaib wants to wipe Israel off the map, and they still defend those two. Congressman Andre Carson of Indianapolis refers to Louis Farrakhan as his friend and will not denounce his bigotry. And the Democrats still rally around him. That's the difference. They not like us. And if we are not capable of saying, yeah, you got to go, you got to spend some time and time out, then learn from it and come back a better person, because I believe in redemption. We're not willing to say that. We're not serious. We already know the Democratic Party isn't serious on this subject. And I think that's going to be helpful going to November of 2026. I'm Tony Katz. I swear to you, I can't believe I have to have that talk. And yeah, I saw this from Matt Walsh, and I'm like, what does it take to be normal? What does it take to be normal? No one is arguing about policy. We should rally around policy. got to rally around. I got to rally around somebody with these kind of commentaries. Nope. I'm not going to do that. Now, with it all, I want to know how they got this. I want to know how they got these messages. It's interesting to me how that happened. But no one's saying, hey, this wasn't me. I haven't heard that yet. I will follow the story. Guys, the show continues at WIBC.com. That's where you should be. That's where you should be listening. I'm on Newsmax tonight at 6:20, so tune in for that. I appreciate you. I like seeing the numbers. I like seeing the people. Guys, thank you so much. Join me tomorrow. Good times will be had. Guaranteed or your money back. Yeah, I know it's free. What are you going to do? I'll catch you tomorrow, everybody. Take care.